This is Bloomberg Markets Balance of Power. I'm David Weston.
And I'm Sherry Ann. Western governments are taking a harder line on Russia. The chemical attack on an ex-spy in the UK, an influencing campaign during the U.S. presidential election, and Russia's support for the Assad government in Syria have brought condemnations, targeted sanctions, and diplomatic expulsions. But is any of it likely to deter or even humble Russian leader Vladimir Putin? Many say that's not likely, including Congressman Heck, Democrat of Washington and a member of the Intelligence Committee. He introduced a bipartisan bill last week that calls on harsher treatment for Russia before the 2018 midterm elections. Is now in Capitol Hill. Thank you so much for your time. So what exactly do you think should be done against Russia?
I think we ought to implement the sanctions that Congress passed 517 to 5. That hasn't been done. What the administration announced this week was not only sanction light, it was sanction light. It would be the equivalent of somebody having committed a capital crime and being given probation for it. All they did basically was sanction one oligarch, the chef, one military intelligence officer who had already been sanctioned, and then a whole bunch of 23-year-old hackers that sat in windowless rooms doing this damage during the 2016 presidential election. What we want the administration to do is what we voted for last year.
What about the sanctions that have been implemented on these intelligence agencies, also on their business, on their people? You do not think that they will either harm or even scare Moscow?
It was a decent start insofar as that part went, but look, what's at issue here is what is it going to take to get Vladimir Putin to stop, to step down, to step back from interfering in the elections of Western democracies. And here's what we believe. You got to put the squeeze on him. And the way you put the squeeze on him is you sanction his circle of oligarch friends. And that's not what's happened in the sanctions that have been adopted. That's what we need to do. We will know that the sanctions are working when he stops interfering. And as we speak here today, he's continuing to interfere not only in America, but also in the Mexican national elections upcoming.
But, Congressman, do we have any reason to believe sanctions would ever work? I mean, there have been sanctions on Russia for a good long time now, including not just the United States, but Europe, our European allies and stuff, in the wake of what happened in Ukraine and the shooting down of the civilian airliner. And it doesn't seem like we've deterred his behavior one lick. So why do we think if you just double down, it's going to change him?
Well, we have every reason to believe that if we continue to do what we're doing now, it won't work, right? What we haven't done really is levy the sanctions against the oligarchs. That's his inner circle. Those are the people who are billionaires and his autocratic kleptocracy. And if we want to change behavior, that's where we must now next hit.
So, Congressman, as best you know, why aren't we doing that? I mean, as you say, Congress said this is what we should do. Give us a list of the people we should go after, and you got something that wasn't very helpful. Why is it the administration is resisting this at this point?
Yeah, good question to put to the administration, isn't it? Why is it that the administration has refused even to, in the form of the president, come out and speak harshly against the attempted murder of those two people in England last week? Why is that? Why is it that he refuses to criticize Vladimir Putin despite continuing interference in Western democracies? That's a good question. Ask the president that.
So on that front, Democrats from the House Intelligence Committee continuing to investigate a possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. What measures are you taking right now, and what are you pursuing?
Well, first of all, I would like to respectfully disagree with your phraseology. There wasn't possible collusion. There was collusion hiding in plain sight. How else would you characterize the meeting in the Trump Tower between the Russian nationals, which they came to because they said we have dirt on Secretary of State Clinton to be used by the Trump campaign during the campaign? How else can you explain some of the secret meetings that occurred, the communications between Donald Trump Jr. and others involved? There is collusion. Of that, there is no doubt.
Are you afraid that the president might fire the special counsel, Mr. Mueller, given that he's now asking for documents from the Trump organization?
Yeah, I would be afraid if Director Mueller did not request those documents. That seems to me to be the next responsible thing to do and a natural result of where we are now in the progression of this campaign. I think, first of all, let me be clear. I don't have eyes on the Mueller investigation. There is a firewall between us and them. So my opinion is just that of an informed person following these events. But it looks to me like it probably does to most Americans that where this is heading toward is a forensic accounting of possible money laundering.
So, Congressman, I understand you don't know what's going on with the Mueller investigation. By the way, none of us does, which is the way it ought to be. It ought to be secret, and it is secret. But as you look at it as a citizen, doesn't it seem much more likely that Mr. Mueller will make progress?
Phrase the famous beer commercial, it's Mueller time. Yeah, I think that's true. I, however, hold out some hope that the Senate Intelligence Committee is going to come up with some things that are worthwhile. I even hold out a tiny shred of hope that House Democrats and Republicans can come together on proposing some protective measures going into the 2018 election and beyond. We're getting very late for that at this point, but I still think there's a possibility we can come together on that, and I hope that we will, and I'll certainly advocate for that.
Okay, Congressman Heck, thank you very much for joining us today, Congressman. He's a Democrat from Washington. Coming up.